What's up, New City Fellowship? My name is Steve Schaper. I'm a pastoral assistant over at our West End campus. And I just listened to DJ Davis, one of our interns over at West End, give a powerful, powerful message. And in the sermon, he was primarily speaking to our African American brothers and sisters, giving a word of encouragement. Keep your head up. That the injustices that we see around us, that's not who God is. God is a God of justice. And he invited our white brothers and sisters, people that look like me, to sit in solidarity in the conversation and receive the challenge that came along with those words of encouragement. And so today, what I'd like to do is kind of flip that conversation. And I hope that it challenges, but I hope that it also encourages my white brothers and sisters. And of course, our non-white folks, we ask, please sit in, help us, guide us. We invite you to be part of this conversation. The first thing I want to talk about just very briefly is the concept of reconciliation. Sometimes people misconstrue forgiveness and reconciliation, but I want to make a distinction between the two. Forgiveness can be one way. I can forgive somebody without them desiring to be forgiven. I can forgive someone that didn't even know they hurt me. And sometimes we need to do that as Christians. As people who have been forgiven by God, we need to forgive those who have done us wrong. But reconciliation is something else. It's not just one way. See, reconciliation it needs at least two parties to come back together. And in reconciliation, there needs to be an admission of wrongdoing. There needs to be an attempt at reconciliation, an attempt at restitution. You know, I did this wrong and I want to make it right. And then in the future, a hope, a goal to not do that thing again. And as we think about this in light of what we've seen the last few weeks, as we think about this in light of what's been going on in our culture and in our world all around us, I want us to consider, what does it mean to have reconciliation today? Maybe some of us are asking the question, well, I didn't do anything wrong individually, and so I don't even know where to start with that. And to that question, I want us to consider our profession of faith. I want us to consider what we believe as people in the PCA, as people in Reformed circles, as some might call themselves Calvinists. We believe that we've gained a status and blessings apart from anything that we did. Long before we were born, not of any of our own doing, we received all this blessing and status. And so some of those same people that affirm that and believe that have such a hard time with a concept of white privilege, that you've received benefits and blessings for something that you had no part in. And so if that's you today in saying that I don't know what to do, or I don't know what I did wrong, I want to challenge you to consider our profession and consider what white privilege means in our culture today. The second thing I want us to consider for those who affirm and acknowledge that, yes, I have received a status, I have received material wealth, I have received maybe an upper hand in education simply because of the color of my skin, I want us to consider what to do with that privilege. See, what the Bible teaches those with status, those with power, what they're to do is to give it up, to share it, to sacrifice it. Consider what Jesus did from Philippians 2:3. Do nothing from rivalry or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. Have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but made himself nothing, taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. And being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. So the way of Christ is to give up his status, to give up himself for the sake of his brothers and sisters. And so this is the cruciform way. Like, if we have privilege, if we have power, to look for ways to give that up around us. And the last thing I want us to consider is this idea that we talk about, that Pastor Thurman talks about, is journeyman. Or I think about the game Barrel of Monkeys. Maybe you're familiar with that game. When I was a kid, we would dump out these barrel of monkeys, like 10 plastic monkeys on the floor, and each of the arms had hooks on each side. And you would take the first monkey and try to scoop up the second one, and then you would take that chain link and try to scoop up a third. And before you knew it, you had 10 monkeys hooked together by their arms. And this illustrates for me what we're to do as brothers and sisters pursuing racial reconciliation. What do I mean by that? I mean, not out of rivalry or conceit, not competing with one another. And what that means, if someone's further along in theology or this idea of racial reconciliation, these ideas of social justice or what it means to follow God in this context, if someone's further along than you, then grab a hold of them, learn from them, understand what they're talking about. But what it doesn't mean is to beat up and give a hard time to those around you that are, quote unquote, less woke. Instead, scoop them up and lovingly bring them along on this journey of racial reconciliation, of understanding what it means to be a Christian in a time like this. And so we hold on to those teachings above us, those teachers that are further along in understanding, but we lovingly lift up those brothers and sisters of all races to help us see what God has for us in terms of being people of racial reconciliation. And so I know this is a lot of challenge today, but I also hope that there's some encouragement, because if you felt like I felt the last week, it's like, what do we do? Like, I don't even know where to start. And as I listened to DJ, I thought, man, I need to talk to my white brothers and sisters in our New City Network and consider these steps, consider these ideas. So I hope that blesses you today. I hope you're encouraged. God bless you all.